exactly if they start again. I mean, they are certainly in this, Western intellectuals are also giving the benefit of doubt to Muslim extremism, not just communism, to radical Islam.
Yeah, yeah.
So that comes. That is even more
troubling.
Not just more troubling, but more contradictory to the social role of intellectuals, that they give any degree of support or endorsement for such a truly reactionary traditional society and way of thinking and way of life. But again, it all comes from their own discomfort with their own society.
And somehow this, I think, element of pride, which many of us have, nonetheless, the leftist intellectuals share this pride in somehow always taking the side of the minority. They are advocates of the so therefore they feel entitled to call for the protection of collective rights in that particular circle, and this leads to, of course, contradictions, but also very troubling circumstances.
But also their sympathy for the underdog or the minority or the victim is idiosyncratic,
They choose some particular underdogs.
Of course, which is again determined by their broader political and ideological values and beliefs. I mean, Western intellectuals have never been terribly interested in the victims of communism. They just haven't. They are interested in the victims of right-wing fascist dictatorships or racist governments, etc.
Which is fine, but which is not enough.
But it's part of the story only.
What's your feeling in America nowadays? Do you think that one can hope that one day we will have a sort of more balanced account of the 20th century history of horrors and totalitarianism?
Well, it's very difficult to know because, first of all, I am constitutionally incapable of prediction. I didn't expect the Soviet system to collapse, for example. I was very happy when it did, but I didn't think it will. And as I look at these trends in American, current or contemporary American social history or political thinking, I think there are certain constants in the which will continue to influence the disposition of intellectuals. So I think this discontent will not go away. The question is how it will find expression and whether or not the new generations of intellectuals will be more willing to take a more critical view of communist systems and not try to take the position that yes, they made mistakes, but the ideas were wonderful. Which is, that sort of in brief a summary of the people like Eric Hobsbawm.
For instance.
So it's difficult to know.
Maybe the political establishment can have a contribution to it. Somehow, in the times of Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, John Paul II and others, nobody could have possibly imagined, or Helmut Kohl, that a decent person would ever take side of, the red totalitarianism.
Well,
But nowadays, when we have in the White House, forgive me, some people quoting Chairman Mao, that's disturbing.
I would like to know actually.
Anita Dunn, who works for the White House.
That's right.
She's a
communication director.
Something like that. Yeah, she's a close person.
I didn't know she was quoting Mao.
Yeah, she quoted Chairman Mao as one of the greatest philosophers that she can ever refer to.
That is indeed disturbing. I didn't know that. You see, my view of Obama is actually, now that you mentioned him, that it is unfortunate there are these kinds of people around him, but I thought, I didn't think he was a radical. I think he has some genuine conservative impulses and middle-of-the-road impulses. That has been my impression of him. Now there are certain things in his policies and statements I didn't like at all. For example, his Cairo speech that was pure moral equivalence. On the one hand, this is what the Jews did wrong, this is what the Arabs did wrong.
And somehow he plays the role of the great mediator, of the pontifex, of the great reconciler of nations, religions, and that's the hubris. That's very daring for a president and even for an intellectual. That a new era can even start with him. I mean, this is sheer arrogance, isn't it?
Yes. Well, or you might say that it's better than the kind of arrogance which is inspired by ideological certainties. So this is, you could say, well, this is a more naivete and some degree of humility, or I mean, it's hard to figure him out. That's the truth of the matter. I remember before he was elected, the New Yorker magazine had a long article about his wife, Michelle, in which he was also interviewed and quoted, which annoyed me very much because she had nothing good to say about American society. So I actually wrote a letter to the New Yorker, which to my surprise they printed. It was the only letter they printed on this subject. I don't know if they had others, but I made the point in the letter that I was surprised of her taking the position that her own good fortune in American society was a pure accident. It had nothing to do with the system or the social changes which occurred. That was my main point. And of course, since she became the wife of the president, she has not made any such statements. You know, she has been much more prudent.
Yeah.
And you know, she is a great patron of veterans or veterans' wives and so forth. So, you know, I think at the present time, Western intellectuals who in the past idealized these communist systems, there are not too many places they can go to or look for. Yes, you mentioned Chavez. He is one. There is a little bit of a pilgrimage to Venezuela.
Yeah.
And some people still think well of Cuba.
Yeah.
But there is not a great deal upon which to project these hopes and experience and expectations. But the discontent remains. I mean, also a lot of this discontent is this kind of old-fashioned discontent with capitalism.
Yeah. Despite this, the great failure of social Europe, of the welfare states in Europe, now if there is an obvious fact, I think, this is that the welfare system provided by Western Europe after 1945 for its whole population is not sustainable anymore. And somehow there's again a selective reading of the economic crises, because on the one hand, of course, capitalism did suffer a huge crisis in America 2 years ago and the last year and so on. But it's even more, I think, worrisome and troublesome what's happening in Europe nowadays.
But you see, what happening in Europe doesn't have the same kind of moral, ethical implications as the problems in America, because in America you really have these incredible, irrational, and hard to justify income inequalities. You know, that I mean, I don't see why there have to be several hundred times income differences in order to stimulate productivity. You don't need that. You don't need that.
Yeah.
So there is. You see, the recent generation of many of these American CEOs and capitalists contributed greatly to discrediting capitalism.
That's true. You know, as William Barclay said, the problem with capitalism is the capitalists, and the problem with socialism is socialism. So,
very good. I didn't know this.
So I think, that's it. And we in Eastern Europe, unfortunately, we can't really defend capitalism because of the wild aspects of capitalism we've witnessed in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
But no, I think really we need such contributions that you are constantly providing in the public forum, and we are very grateful for that. And we are looking forward to listening to your talk in a few minutes.
Thank you very much.